Your cancer diagnosis matters less than you think. In order to choose your supplements, you actually want to look at your health and the overall processes in your body. This is going to actually be the best route for you to follow when it comes to deciding what are the best supplements for you. So it's not about killing cancer cells. It's more about looking at you and your full picture of health. And the best evidence out there is on optimizing your health and the overall processes that are going on in your body. Welcome back to the Flourish After Cancer podcast. Today, we're going to go into probably everyone's favorite subject, which is supplements. We're going to talk about the anti-cancer supplements, the supplements that can help to support your body. And what we're really looking to achieve here is to reduce the risk of cancer coming back and help people to feel better faster, feel stronger, those kind of things. So a lot of the times women come to me, they finish cancer treatment, and they're just trying to piece their life back together. They're looking at their nutrition, their sleep, they've got potentially low energy, they're worried about their white blood cell count or whatever might be popping up for them on any sort of measurements that have been taken by their oncologist. And if this is, you might be even asking yourself, like, should I be taking supplements? And if so, which ones? Which ones are safe? Which ones are best for you? What's going to give you like the biggest bang for your buck? What's going to really work on killing these cancer cells? And you may have gone to Google, you probably were looking like anti-cancer supplements or breast cancer killing supplements or whatever it might be to search in there. And potentially a whole bunch might be coming up, or you might be looking on social media. There's a lot of information out there on cancer supplements on social media for sure. And what really tends to happen is that women will end up with like a full cart full of supplements. A lot of the time, maybe you're on Amazon and you've got like $200 worth of supplements in there, right? Or you're coming across different social media platforms and they're like, take this supplement, it's going to kill these cancer cells, like methylene blue, or what are big ones right now? People like talking about even like apricot seeds and stuff like that. And we'll talk about those specifically, probably on very close to the near future podcast episodes too. But what I find tends to happen the most is frustration. You're just like, I just want to take the right things. And it's not clear on what should you be taking because someone's saying this, the other person's saying that. And then you end up with like 10, 15 supplements sometimes. And you're like, what is this? Is this really happening? So in this episode, I am going to walk you through what would be the most important things to consider when it comes to creating your own supplement plan. Because a lot of the times it's not necessarily just about killing cancer cells so much as it is about addressing the environment in your body and then applying supplements to encourage those processes, those environments to work very much in an anti-cancer aspect. I'm going to go into that fully today and go through some specific areas that we want you to be looking at. And here's what I'm going to start with. I just want you to know that I am a fan of supplements. A lot of the time when I do a lot of trainings or respond to specific inquisition questions, things like that, it might sound like I'm not a fan of supplements because I'm just going to put it out there that there's actually no true research showing that a supplement has been shown to reduce cancer recurrence risk very strongly. There's legitimately no great research showing that such and such supplement can reduce cancer recurrence risk over time in the way that we want to see research done. And here's why that is. Here's why there's very limited information when it comes to supplements and reducing cancer recurrence risk. A big part of it is really just that there aren't really any studies on this. There's really a lack of regulations when it comes to supplements in general. So not even just cancer, but supplements in diabetes or heart disease or whatever it might be. There's really a lack of regulations. It's not regulated by the FDA like drugs and medications are. And this means that there are no pre-market testing requirements for safety and efficacy, meaning that companies don't really have to prove that their stuff works, which is very unmotivating for them to do research on supplements because like they don't have to. It's a money suck. It's going to take away from the profits and stuff like that. I get it. It's part of running a supplement business. But they have no motivation to put money into the appropriate studies to say like, yes, this works, or no, it doesn't really work. Also, how bad would it look if they did all this work and put all the money into a supplement research test and they found that it didn't even work? Like that could be very detrimental to the company, right? And if there are some studies that have been done, because there are definitely some studies done, I'm not saying they're all bad for sure, but just like I would say 90%, just to give a blanket statement, 90% of supplement studies are really not that great. They have a lot of bias. They're often done by companies that are selling the product, meaning that we should be able to trust what the company is putting out there, but 100% we can't be certain that they're not skewing their data, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, that they're skewing their data a little bit. Also, they're very poorly done a lot of the times because, again, there's not a lot of money to put into it, I would say. So they're skipping around, cutting corners, things like that. And they're not often looking at the right markers or giving like the right dose. They're not really looking for the right outcome that we need to measure. A lot of the times, instead of looking at like long-term 5 or 10 year recurrence risk, they might be just showing that at 6 months, it doesn't raise, so let's say it's a breast cancer study. So they're going to study a supplement in breast cancer patients to see, does it actually do anything? And what we really want to know is it actually decreasing recurrence risk? But what they're probably going to look at is, does this supplement increase estrogen over time? Because if it's an ER positive breast cancer diagnosis, they're going to look at maybe 6 months and show, okay, there's no increase in estrogen. This potentially can show that this person is going to see a benefit in reducing recurrence risk because there's no increased estrogen. Estrogen might even have been down. But what they're only looking at is a 6 month marker when we want to look at a 5 or 10 year recurrence risk score and actually measure, did they get breast cancer? Again, did they get breast cancer more than the other group of people who didn't have this particular supplement? But a long-term study like that is super expensive. It's difficult to navigate and get people to stay on board and stuff like that. So we often don't get that information because of those reasons for sure. So we're just saying like, okay, it doesn't increase estrogen, so that's probably safe, even though we don't know for sure because we're not actually measuring, did cancer come back or not? So we're looking at the wrong markers a lot of time whenever we're analyzing the research or carrying out research studies on supplements. Another reason why it's hard to say like this supplement does this job very well is because a lot of the supplement research papers, the research projects that are done, they're small and they're not going to represent the entire population. They're going to be mostly pertaining to a certain person or a very small subgroup, and that doesn't necessarily apply to a bigger group of people. And even if you had the same characteristics as that small population that was studied, there's so many different factors involved when it comes to like your genetics, your epigenetics, your cultural background. So even if you had the same cancer diagnosis, same treatment as someone, there's a lot of different factors involved. And often in a small study, they're just grouping people into same diagnosis, same treatment must apply to you as well. But that's not necessarily the case. And I just have to say that whenever I did research, so I did cancer research. I did my master's, and I'm very much a hand talker, so that hitting my mic is going to happen often. But I did my master's in breast cancer research, and we looked at breast cancer cell lines. So they were mouse cell lines and human cell lines in a petri dish. We also did some animal work too, which I have to say I never want to do again because the poor little animals. We're not going to go into that in this episode. So I did this. I applied gingerol, which is an extract from ginger. And my goal was to see, how did the cells die? So did it kill the breast cancer cells and how did they die? And I also looked at immune system functions and stuff like that too. We looked at T cells, part of the immune system, and applying gingerol to that and how did it mediate? And the kind of big picture goal is, how did it mediate inflammation? And I have to say that I accidentally killed these cancer cells so many times that it's crazy. So it is so easy. The main goal for me to get you to understand here is that it is so easy to kill cells in culture. So whenever we're getting a lot of the research back on supplements, it's often in cell cultures, right? Or in animals and things like that. And it is a completely different thing to look at when we're looking at cells in culture or cells in animals versus cancer cells in human beings, which have so many more layers involved when it comes to different things happening, processes going on, the ways drugs are metabolized and delivered and things like that, completely different in a human being. So if we're looking at a lot of the research articles that are carried out in cell lines and animal studies and trying to apply that information to human beings, it is not applicable whatsoever. We need to look at the way things are delivered. So for example, I have a sheet of cells and it's in a little dish and I'm literally putting in my gingerol in its food and then I'm just layering the food on top and then it gets absorbed. Whereas if you think of a human, you take a capsule, you have to break that down appropriately in your stomach. It then has to get distributed through your bloodstream or like through your kidneys, your liver. It gets packaged and processed, all that kind of jazz. And then it actually gets delivered to the tumor potentially. But we don't really know how much of the dose is actually getting delivered to that tumor, right? Whereas I can pretty much guess exactly how much dose is getting delivered to my petri dish of cells. So that's just another layer. So whenever we're looking at a lot of supplement studies, even in studies that have been done, again, potentially a lot of them are already done by the companies that are trying to sell you the supplement, it is really not, it's not as applicable to a human being because there's so many different factors involved. And as I mentioned, I killed so many cells by accident. And whenever I was doing my research, that I can tell you that my research was really just to figure out what pathways are involved in the killing process in order to kill the cells. Because potentially what we can do is learn how to take, like gingerol, for example, and dial it into an injection that can be directly injected into a tumor. And then we can see that the cells are going to die via the NF-kappa B pathway or whatever. I'm not going to go into detail, honestly. There's a lot of acronyms that I'm even starting to forget since it's been so long since I did my master's and all the different things involved. But it just tells us what pathways are killing these cancer cells because maybe we have certain types of cancers that are more easy to kill through these pathways. And then we want to start creating drugs or concentrated forms of supplements that can reach these tumors and kill these cancers because they're more susceptible to be killed through those pathways. There's different reasons why we do animal and cell research, but the big ones are just to see how do they die, not necessarily if they die or not. So this all makes it sound like I'm very like supplements are garbage and they don't work and we don't know, but this is absolutely not true. I do believe that this is a especially important layer to add on to other things that we would be doing when we're working with someone when it comes to reducing the risk of recurrence coming or cancer coming back. And whenever it comes to just overall optimizing their health, creating this environment in the body where cancer just doesn't want to be. So it doesn't mean that we're going to be ignoring all the research that we do have in cell culture, animals, and the little bits that we do have in humans, even if it's not directly looking at the goals we want to measure or it's looking at small studies that might not be applicable to you. We're definitely going to still look at this information. We're going to use it, but I just want to make sure that we are using the strongest evidence first. And these are like the foundations that you're going to learn as you follow along with me as we go through these sessions, these podcast episodes. So this is going to be like your nutrition, your exercise, your sleep, your stress reduction, all these very strong foundational pillars. We're going to use the most solid evidence first when it comes to human being highest priority and then layering in things from there. But we're also going to add in supplements on top of these foundations. And we're going to be very happy about these supplements, but we're going to be more intentional about their use, basically. Because I have to tell you that many people, whenever they come to work with us, they're usually taking like 10, 20, possibly even 30 supplements, and they might have taken 10 different ones last month compared to what they're taking this month. Like the trends change so often. They've changed their ideas of what they need so often. They're being influenced by being told to take this, that, and the other thing based on blog posts or whatever information they're coming across. And we often find that a lot of the supplements they're duplicative. I don't know exactly how to say that, but they're duplicates. Basically, something might be covering two things that are the exact same processes and they don't need to take both of them, or they're just unnecessary. It's more hype as opposed to actual fact, or it's like we want to apply things based on their body, their needs, not just what someone else has taken because it helped them with their cancer. So there's a big difference really between doing something because it helps you as well and doing something or everything out of fear. And I find that's where a lot of people have to make their decisions because they're not given the right avenues, the right information, the right paths to follow when it comes to figuring out what should they be taking. Instead, they're just piecing together pieces of information and being like, I need to do everything possible to keep cancer coming back. And that's a very fearful process, a very fearful thought to have. And I know you're just trying your best, honestly. But if we can start to help people to apply things based on what they need, as opposed to what they are fearfully grasping for, then we can see so much difference coming forth here in their overall health and their well-being and their mental health as well, emotionally. If you start to understand what you need and what's really important, then you can take a deep breath, right? You feel like you've accomplished what you need and you're on the right path instead of just like hoping for the best. So the more is better mindset is not necessarily true. Some things you're taking are going to hit the same thing. So let's narrow that down. Also, there's not really a magic pill to kill cancer cells. We really want to focus in on what we're going to chat about in just a few seconds here. And the foundational approaches of nutrition and exercise, muscle building, that kind of stuff are going to be way more impactful if you can get these nice and consistent and work for you day to day in your life than taking 10, 20, 30 pills of natural health supplements. We definitely want to find something that works for you. So, how do you actually choose the best supplements? Let's get into the fun part now. I really want to point out that it's not about applying things to kill cancer. We want to look for supplements that are going to help to create this environment in your body where cancer doesn't want to be. And what are the kind of environments that we're looking to poke and prod and balance and make sure that they're working well in your body? Let's start with lowering inflammation. And there's 5 processes total that I'm going to talk about here, but we're going to start by talking about lowering inflammation, which is probably going to take up most of my time, and then we'll go into the rest of them throughout as well. So, why is inflammation important? Inflammation is a known cancer causer, cancer contributor. It is, especially chronic inflammation, it is known, conventionally accepted to contribute to cancer starting and growing. What happens is inflammation, if it's sticking around for a long time, it damages your DNA. Your DNA is basically like an instruction manual for cells. So if that instruction manual is damaged, you're going to create lopsided buildings. You're going to create damaged cells. And then those damaged cells are going to go and duplicate themselves and create more damaged cells, and more problems happen. And that is how a cancer initiative changes, basically, or starts. So inflammation comes in, it damages DNA. That DNA in that cell causes the cell to look funky, and then that funky cell will go and create more of the funky cells until you've got a tumor. So we really need to look at what can we do to lower inflammation, because it's going to lower these hits to these DNA changes. That's going to lower the damaged amount of cells. That's going to lower the duplicates of those damaged amounts of cells. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So in addition, what happens during inflammation is not only is it going to hit DNA, but there's little chemical signals that are going to be released, things like cytokines or inflammatory messages, and they're going to encourage an inflammatory environment that's going to be pro-cancer. It's going to be causing this cancer cells to be able to grow faster. It's going to be giving them some fuel sources. It is also going to be blocking the immune response as well. It's going to encourage their ability to be able to spread and go to other parts of the body. And it's going to encourage their ability to receive nutrition and fuel. And that's like a process called angiogenesis, where it starts to create its own blood vessels, its own blood supply, so that it can go and deliver more nutrients to it and grow and grow and grow as it gets bigger and bigger. So if we can block inflammation, we're going to decrease the amounts of damages that are going to happen to the cells. We are going to discourage the growth and spread. So we're going to discourage it from getting access to fuel sources. We're going to discourage it from being able to go to other parts of the body. And we're going to also encourage your immune system to function more optimally so that it can go and find and fight cancer cells before they actually start to grow. So any of those DNA damaged cells, your immune system is responsible for going and finding and fighting them before they become a big problem. So there's a big link between your immune strength and inflammation as well. They're pretty much the same systems. We just have different names for them in a way. So overall, if we are tackling your inflammatory processes, if we're overall lowering inflammation, then that's going to help your cells to grow more healthfully. And it's going to create this environment that's not conducive to cancer being able to spread and grow and feed itself. All right. So we also want to consider the fact that cancer treatments are pro-inflammatory, and that is just par for the course. We do need some inflammation to go on from cancer treatment because it is going to basically be the thing. The inflammation is actually what kills cancer cells as well. So there's kind of like this fine balance. You may have heard of inflammation being like a double-edged sword, where it's got its pros, where it can help to heal tissues and kill cancer cells. But then it's also got its cons, where in an improper balance of things and going on for a long term, it induces more damage, more cancer promoting factors as well. So we definitely want to make sure that we are tackling the inflammation from cancer treatment in a healthful way, where we're not interrupting whatever processes, your chemotherapy, the radiation therapy, the immunotherapy, whatever kind of inflammatory processes or immune processes that might be triggering on purpose in order to kill cancer cells. But at the same time, we don't want to have inflammation to run rampant. We want to be able to heal the excessive amounts of inflammation, help your body to function optimally during treatment, and especially after treatment as soon as possible to get the body healed, so that we can, again, reduce the environment in the body that might be more conducive to causing cancer to start and grow. So just to say, like, I do believe that chemo and radiation and immunotherapy and surgery and all these kind of therapies have very important roles to play. It's kind of like the best options we've got right now. But there's definitely a role that something like functional medicine, complementary therapy, naturopathic therapy, these types of medicines can help to support the body so that people can receive their treatment even better. Because if we're helping to manage the excessive amounts of inflammation that are going on from cancer treatment, if we're just helping the body to heal faster and focus in on killing the cancer as opposed to destroying a bunch of the other healthy tissues in the body, then people are going to receive their treatment better. They're going to have better blood cell counts. Their white blood cell counts aren't going to drop as fast and as rapidly. They're not going to feel as awful so that the treatment has to be delayed. And especially after treatment, if we can really dive in, ideally as soon as possible, or even sometimes when we're working with people, we prefer for them to come to us whenever they're still in like radiation or just finishing their last rounds of chemotherapy, or if they have upcoming surgery. If we can kind of get them in a little bit sooner, we can help their bodies to be set up to heal really quickly from treatment so that you can bounce back a lot faster. So you have more energy so that we can basically help your treatment to work to its full extent a little bit faster. And I know some of you may have finished cancer treatment like 5-10 years ago, even more potentially. And it doesn't mean that you've missed the boat or you've ruined anything necessarily, that it's not going to be helpful for you to address inflammatory causes. We just want to look at day to day as well, because you know what, like the average person in the world is going to come across some environments that are going to be inflammatory in their body. If we can start to pinpoint these things from a regular day-to-day kind of aspect, that's going to help you to feel better and overall reduce the risk of cancer coming back over time too. So basically, the quicker we can look at resolving cancer promoting inflammation, then the better, like the faster you're going to feel and the better your treatment's going to work, the better we're going to be able to dive in and create this environment where cancer doesn't want to be, it doesn't want to grow, doesn't want to hang around. It's just not getting what it needs to be happy, basically. So since we're talking about supplements, I just want to first do a little quick caveat about root causes, root contributors, and then I'll give you like some specific supplements that we often use when it comes to anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory supplements, okay? But I just want to nail it home that I just want you to really be clear that it is really important to understand root causes of cancer, root contributors to cancer and inflammation. So for first of all, like treatment, it's a cause of inflammation. We want to tackle that. How do we tackle that? We look at healing the body with nutrition and stress reduction and just putting your body in this state of homeostasis basically as best as we possibly can, where it's nice and balanced. Other contributors could be like gut health. So we want to look at the microflora. We want to look at the gut lining. We want to look at the immune support of the gut because a lot of your immune support is within the gut. There's a lot of factors we want to look at when it comes to gut health. We want to see what are contributing to potential causes of inflammation in the gut. And then your gut's very much connected to the rest of your body so that inflammation will spread to the rest of the body. And that's going to help to tackle a root cause of inflammation. There's just so many things we look at for root causes, but if we narrow down what might be contributing to cancer, inflammation in your body, then that's where we're heading. So also environmental factors, things like that. These could all be root contributors to cancer promoting inflammation. To be honest, every episode you're going to tune in is going to be talking about some probably contributor to inflammation in the body, because anything that's going to cause an imbalance is potentially going to show up as a form of inflammation, if that makes sense. So let's get into some specific supplements that we commonly use to tackle cancer-promoting inflammation in order to be anti-cancer, to create this anti-cancer environment in the body. Our favorite one absolutely is curcumin. Curcumin is the concentrated part of turmeric, which is the turmeric root that you can often find in powder form for food or making curries and things like that. Curcumin has so much solid research on it when it comes to how it can kill cancer cells of all different types. So colon cancer, breast cancer, ovarian cancer. I think there's even been studies in blood cancers and things like that. So much research, mostly in cells, to be honest, and animals, but there is some even human research. Again, small studies, but we're still going to look at it and be happy about it. But there's some research on curcumin in cancer, and it shows different pathways that are involved when curcumin comes to killing cancer cells, which is pretty cool. A big thing we want to be careful about with curcumin, though, is that it is metabolized by the same parts of the body that a lot of medications are metabolized to, like certain enzymes in the body that metabolize curcumin, break it down, are the same enzymes that break down a lot of medications. So I have to say we don't prescribe it as often as I would love to prescribe it because of all the benefits from curcumin, because of the potential for it to interact with a lot of medications. So we're always checking people's medications, seeing how are these medications metabolized? What are the potential supplement medication interactions? And then if it's safe, then we often will recommend curcumin. Sometimes we'll pulse it because we want to make sure that we're just honestly, the body, there's no research on this. It's more like a theoretical thing. The body can adapt to things. So sometimes we'll get people to take it for several months and then stop. And then we take it again. And that kind of re-stimulates the body to use it, to react to it, that kind of stuff. We do apply it sometimes for people to take nonstop. It just depends on what we're working on when it comes to the person. So we might get someone's blood work back and their inflammatory levels are high on their blood work and they're not taking any medications that might interact with the curcumin while we're looking at what is causing the inflammation in the first place, whether it was just they're close to treatment and their treatment caused inflammation in the body, or there's another medical condition that we need to search for, whatever it might be, then we will give them curcumin as long as it's safe while we're trying to figure out what is the actual contributor to the inflammatory levels. Or if it is just treatment, sometimes curcumin will be a way to resolve any inflammation that has happened due to the treatment while we're working also on healing their tissues and having stress reduction, because those are probably contributing to the cancer promoting inflammation as well. My other one that is really common for us to use, especially when we can't use curcumin because it might be interacting with some of their medications that our clients might be on or flourishers might be on, is boswellia. Boswellia is very similar to curcumin. In fact, curcumin, it goes through a lot of the same pathways as curcumin too, so I won't go too in depth with it, but it is one of my favorites. I guess one of the cautions with boswellia is that it can sometimes cause gut problems. So sometimes it makes people have a sore stomach. So it depends on the person. We give it a try, especially at the higher doses that are typically required when it comes to using boswellia and having an impact on the inflammatory processes. We'll give it a try. If they have gut problems, then we'll just switch them to something else. It's not like a long-term complete damage thing. They'll just switch them off of it if it does cause problems. I'll go back to curcumin too. Dose is super important when it comes to curcumin, and my favorite way to give curcumin is in like a lipoparticle. So like it's very much a fat soluble particle, the curcumin, and the lipo, the fat, it helps to draw the curcumin into the tissues, into the cells where it can be used more effectively as opposed to just going through your body and getting eliminated. The fats help to bring in the curcumin to where it's desired to have its impact on inflammation and other cancer killing processes that go on that curcumin does. Dose is very important. We tend to love using like the nanoparticles. We're usually looking at, again, this is like all to be taken with a grain of salt. This is based on research. It's typically we find that the best research is like 120 milligrams of curcumin. And we love, again, lipoparticle sources of it. And sometimes piperin can be added in too. I don't know if you've heard of piperin from black pepper. It can help with the absorption of curcumin. But if it's not in the supplement, we're basically focusing on the correct dose and then a lipoparticle form of curcumin for the best absorption. Might be too much information for now if you're feeling a little overwhelmed. But curcumin in general, very beneficial. If you can't take the supplement, we often get people to do like golden milk lattes or curcumin lattes, things like that, because we can get some through food. We can get some turmeric through food. And most of the time, again, needs to be taken. This is very much generalized advice, needs to be taken with a grain of salt. Most of the time, we find that in the research, food sources are generally thought of as safe, even if curcumin has been shown to interact with medications because it's a dose effect. So a supplement form of curcumin might be too high of a dose to interact with a medication, but food forms of curcumin, you're not going to get as much into your system. It's not as high of a dose. So taking turmeric lattes, golden milk lattes is usually safe when it comes to supporting women with inflammation and if there's medication interactions. My other favorite one would be omega-3s. I have to say we don't recommend this one too often, but we do epigenetic testing with a lot of our clients as well, a lot of our flourishers. And it has some decent research showing that at the right doses, and the research dose is about 3 grams of omega-3s daily, it can help to reduce inflammation. Mostly we're looking at this research as it applies to other health conditions, like they've studied omega-3s in like joint pain and joint pain and arthritis. So if arthritis is an inflammatory process, we can then go to say that if omega-3s are helping with arthritis, it's probably helping with the inflammation. And they do also study like blood work inflammatory levels in a lot of these arthritis patients too, and show that their blood work inflammatory levels reduce. So we're going to take that information and apply it to how we would apply to someone who has a cancer diagnosis as well. And my last one for inflammation, and then we'll move on to the next one, and the next ones will go a little bit more quickly. But my favorite thing when it comes to modulating the immune system and impacting inflammatory levels would be mistletoe injection. So mistletoe taken by like a tincture or a supplement is not the same as prescribed mistletoe injections, which you can do at home once you're taught how to do it. And mistletoe helps to modulate the immune system. So it can change your immune system to be more pro-cancer killing. So it can encourage more natural killer cells to be made, basically, or it can decrease cancer promoting processes. It just has this impact on the body depending on what is needed to modulate the immune response. It doesn't increase it, it doesn't decrease it, it just modulates it to whatever is necessary when it comes to supporting your body. Other things we sometimes will use for immune system support would be like thymus gland extract or astragalus, things like that too. But mistletoe is probably one of my favorite things for helping to support the immune system. So my final caution here is that these aren't band-aids. They work best when they're paired with lifestyle and dietary changes that are consistent and manageable for you every day and built to support your personal body's needs. But they are everyone's favorite topic and things that we often prescribe. So we are mentioning these specific supplements for you today. So I am mentioning these things. My second thing when it comes to addressing or choosing people's supplements in order to support their body against cancer is to target cancer stem cells. So this might be a little bit more cancer killing, whereas the other ones I'm talking about are more about the environment and supporting the processes that happen in your body. So targeting cancer stem cells, we're going to target to kill the cancer stem cells or to kill or make them stay asleep, basically, make them dormant. And cancer stem cells, they're often what's left behind after treatment. It is thought that these cancer stem cells, they are often resistant to chemotherapy, radiation, whatever it might be. So while there's a population of cancer cells that will get killed by chemo and radiation and removed by surgery and things like that, there seems to be some tumor stem cells that get left behind because the chemo just can't cause them to die. It just doesn't kill them in the same way. And there's a lot of research that is still needed in this area from conventional medicine as well as from the natural side of things, for sure. I think it's such a cool aspect of what can be done to support people with a cancer diagnosis, but we're still building the information on this for sure. But some of my favorites when it comes to tackling cancer stem cells are high dose melatonin. I love optimizing people's vitamin D blood levels for more reasons than just cancer stem cells. There's a lot of strong research on optimizing vitamin D blood levels for cancer recurrence for a variety of different reasons. But one of them would be to target cancer stem cells. Potentially vitamin D can target cancer stem cells. IV vitamin C, so intravenous vitamin C delivery, can also potentially target cancer stem cells. Sulforaphane, which is an active ingredient from broccoli and broccoli sprouts. It's like an antioxidant and can help to kill cancer stem cells and cancer cells in general. Green tea extract, particularly the EGCG within green tea. And also curcumin, again, has been shown to target potentially some cancer stem cells. Again, the research is very low quality, meaning that we still need to do more human stuff. We need to do more long-term research for sure, but I'm not going to ignore what we've got. We're going to use it for sure. And just one more thing about targeting cancer stem cells is the environment is also going to help to target cancer stem cells. Cancer stem cells like to be awoken at certain points, and they're woken up. I need to go back to English or something. They wake up by certain things that might stimulate them in the environment. So inflammation would be something that could potentially stimulate a cancer stem cell to wake up, to then divide and create more tumor cells, more of a cancer to develop again. That's where we think recurrences come from, is these cancer stem cells, they're not hit by treatment and then they hang out for a little bit and then they're re-stimulated at a certain point in time due to potentially environmental stimulants like inflammation, like what we're going to talk about next as well, and everything I'm always going to talk about in all these episodes. They're stimulated by things in the environment. So again, instead of just tackling things to kill cancer cells, we really want to come back and look at tackling the environment in the body so that it's not conducive to turning these cancer stem cells on or other processes that can lead to fueling cancer cells to start and grow overall. Okay. So that was targeting cancer stem cells. Let's now get into my third point here when it comes to how to choose your supplements to help support your body against cancer. And that's supporting methylation and mitochondrial health. So methylation, it's a bit complicated. It's been new in maybe the last 15 years. I feel like it's becoming more and more discussed and talked about. I think it's been around for much longer than that, but now we're starting to look a little bit more into the research and how this applies to specifically functional medicine a lot of the time as well. But methylation, it is a key biochemical process involved in gene expression and DNA repair. And the way that it works is basically if we have poor methylation, and poor methylation can be different depending on what we're looking at being methylated, but poor methylation can potentially increase cancer risk because it is preventing your body from repairing DNA damage. And we talk about how DNA damage and inflammation are linked, how DNA damage can go and create DNA damaged cells, warped cells that then can recreate themselves and eventually turn into a tumor. So if we have cells that are one, creating more DNA damaged cells, and two, can't repair that DNA before it becomes more of a problem, which is the responsibility of a lot of methylation processes is the repair part, then we're going to be encouraging more cancer cells to start and grow. So we want to do things when it comes to, again, nutrition, exercise, all that kind of jazz to target methylation, but there are also some specific supplements that can help with targeting methylation as well. So my favorites are B vitamins in general. So we often give women B supplements based on, again, we do epigenetic testing based on, we'll test their B12 and their folate and things like that on blood work as well. We'll just get a health history because a lot of cancer treatments will deplete B vitamins over time. Also, there are certain symptoms that might pop up that can show that people are going to be depleted in B vitamins, whether it's excessive stress, because the stress response requires a lot of B vitamins in order to heal itself, in order to function more optimally. But B vitamins like methylated B12, for example, B6, folate, these are all very important processes in the whole reaction of methylation. Again, there's like so many biochemical pictures of this. I'm not going to get too in depth with it. It's pretty intense and sciencey. And I feel like maybe someday I'll do a whole episode on methylation to go through everything, but I feel like I would still lose half my audience. You'd fall asleep because I'd be like, then this turns into that, and that turns into this, and you require this. I feel like it's best seen whenever we look at images. If you look in methylation on images on Google or something like that, it'll show you all these little cyclical cycles and circles and things like that that have all the little B vitamins and all the other parts of methylation involved that help to heal cells and repair DNA damage and just overall encourage the proper functioning of methylated processes in your body. Very sciencey, very boring in reality. But yeah, so we look at methylated B12, we look at B6, we look at folate. I do want to put a little caveat in here that we want to test people's B12 on blood work. We do not want to overdose or overprescribe B12. If someone's levels are adequate, especially if they've experienced a cancer diagnosis, we do not want to encourage too much B12 because it can be more pro-growth. So we only will give specific higher doses of B12 for any women who have low B12. We want to get them to adequate blood levels for sure. We do often give people, so if they have adequate blood levels of B12, we'll give a little bit of B12 in a B complex and not be too worried about it. And then we'll just make sure that we always encourage retesting once or twice a year at least when it comes to their B12 and folate and things like that. So we would give them B complex. We would already know where their B12 levels are, give them the B complex, and then retest over time just to make sure that the B12 isn't getting excessively high. Again, B12, we need adequate doses in the blood. A little bit is okay to get to your adequate blood doses, but we don't want to see like excessively high levels of B12 on blood work. And I know it's a common thing for people to take post-treatment or during treatment is the B12 because it's been shown to improve neuropathy symptoms. But there becomes a point where you basically have taken it for long enough, and we don't want you to continue taking B12 forever. It's only going to do so much for a certain point to help neuropathy. And then after that, it's just like excessive amounts of levels that can potentially be more pro-growth. So we definitely want to get people's B12 checked on blood work as regularly as we can. Other things we look at for methylation are magnesium, very common, very safe supplement to take for most people, as well as choline. These can help with the little cycles and circles and little biochemical processes that happen within methylation changes. So just I guess a little important note is we don't necessarily want to guess here. We definitely want to test where we can. We want to test your blood work. We want to test your epigenetics as well. And it's really why I love testing so much. I love data points. I love information. I love numbers. It just helps to give us more of a clear path of like, yes, you do need B12. You should be taking this. Or let's get you to do this B12 and then we're going to retest. And like, that's probably enough at a certain point. We can really see what's most important for you Is it working? Is it not working? And when do we want to change directions and stop that and move on to the next step, basically? So testing is awesome. Two more things to talk about when it comes to choosing the best supplements to help you support you against cancer. I'm guessing by now you're realizing that's not quite what you thought I was going to be talking about. You thought I'd be saying for colon cancer, this is the best thing to kill cancer. But again, coming back to this is there's no strong research on that. But there is strong research on encouraging this environment in the body where cancer doesn't want to be between nutrition and exercise and optimizing vitamin levels, especially vitamin D, for example. And if we can support these processes, like again, gut health is important. And there's actually strong human research showing that people of good gut health tend to have lower cancer recurrence rates. So we can optimize these processes through using supplements in this way, as opposed to applying something to kill cancer cells, you're going to get a better outcome here. We need to change this whole thought process. I hope you're still along with me in understanding that as well. But 4 is hormone balance. Especially for estrogen-driven or hormone-driven cancers, we can do some things with supplements in order to encourage more healthy forms of estrogen being made, for example, and discouraging less of the more harmful types of estrogen being made. We can influence the metabolism of estrogen in the body. So we do this with things like DIM, or I3C. These are things that are found in cruciferous vegetables, so you can also eat a lot of cruciferous vegetables. They'll help to encourage more of the healthy forms of hormones to be made and discourage more of the harmful types of hormones to be made. We can also look at gut health with supplements and managing hormone balance, because your gut is the most important part of your body when it comes to getting rid of excessive amount of hormones so that they're not recycled throughout the body and then can go and hit like a breast tissue cell, breast cell, in order to encourage more hormone-driven processes to happen. So like if we're not eliminating estrogen throughout the body regularly with bowel movements, for example, that might just sit in the gut, get reabsorbed back into the bloodstream, and then we have higher levels of estrogen in the body, potentially going and targeting hormone-driven cells that might be encouraging cancer to start and grow. So looking at things that particularly can target the hormonal processes like the estrogen metabolism breakdown, and also looking at things like supplements that can target gut health, from your probiotics to fiber to encouraging proper bowel movements, from anything like digestive bitters that helps to move things through the gut system, like it encourages the parasympathetic nervous system to encourage what's called peristalsis, the movement and the contractions of the intestines to move the stool out of the body. All these things, all these supplements can be chosen to support gut health, can be chosen to support estrogen metabolism. I will go deeper into hormone stuff for sure. It's a topic that I have a great interest in, and I'm probably going to be doing a hormone specific training in the near future as well. So keep an eye out for that. And then the last point that I want people to focus on when it comes to choosing the best supplements for them is to analyze their metabolic support, looking at things like blood sugar and cholesterol levels. So by supporting these processes, by supporting your blood sugar levels and by supporting cholesterol levels, we're overall supporting lowering inflammation. It loops back to the first point that I chatted about there. Because if we have high blood sugar, is going to encourage more pro-inflammatory processes to happen in your body. Same thing with cholesterol. Cholesterol encourages more pro-inflammatory processes in the body. So it can be seen as blood sugar and cholesterol being root contributors to inflammation in general. So if we can apply things like berberine, for example, to help to lower blood sugar, even adding more fiber through food or supplementation like psyllium supplements can help to balance your blood sugar. There's very small information on chromium and blood sugar. I have to say we don't often use chromium for blood sugar. We usually find we can do a lot when it comes to building muscle in our clients and helping them with balancing their blood sugar at each meal and choosing blood sugar friendly foods and stuff like that. That typically has a greater impact. That potentially alongside something like berberine to tackle things as they're starting to change their health habits over time. That's going to help to lower your blood sugar. And by lowering blood sugar, yes, we are lowering inflammation because we're discouraging more pro-inflammatory processes to be triggered. And we're also decreasing a fuel source for cancer too. And I wouldn't say, everyone talks about how sugar feeds cancer. I'm going to do, again, we got so much to talk about, guys. We're going to do a whole episode on that soon about sugar and cancer. But we do want to be clear that sugar is a source for cancer. It's also a source for some healthy cells as well, for all your healthy cells. And what we can do is we can still make sure that we're not overproducing blood sugar. We're not having a lot of sugar hanging out in the blood that can then go and stimulate cancer cells even more. So if we can lower your blood sugar, we're going to cut off a fuel source to cancer, and we're also just going to lower inflammation in the body. And cholesterol is impacted very commonly by a lot of different cancer treatments, as well as just aging is going to raise cholesterol in our bodies over time as well. So if we can look at managing cholesterol through diet, through exercise, through specific supplementation, our favorite supplements for cholesterol are bergamot and as well as psyllium fibers. Sometimes carnitine, and vegans and vegetarians can be very helpful for a lot of our clients as well. But these are not band-aids. You definitely have to do the nutrition and lifestyle approaches. And there's other factors involved too. If you have a family history of cholesterol, it can sometimes be very difficult to manage, but not impossible. And I think it's even my next episode, I'm going to talk about appropriate testing for optimizing the whole health of your body above and beyond just like your liver kidney panel. Part of it I'm going to talk about is cholesterol testing and going a little more in depth with cholesterol testing. But we can look at that, and a lot of the times that will pertain to more family history and deciding if you should take statins or not when it comes to the additional testing that can be done for cholesterol. But that was a big side note. Mostly we want to look at nutrition, lifestyle, bergamot, and psyllium husk, sometimes carnitine for cholesterol support. It's very helpful for that. And another last thing on this is that heart disease, often caused by high cholesterol, and cancer are really neck and neck for the most common causes of death in the world, right? So we don't want someone to go through cancer treatment and then everyone forgets that they also are at risk for heart disease over time too. Everyone is, because the general population, one of the biggest causes of death is heart disease, right? So we want to look at you as a whole person and not just the cancer diagnosis, and look at reflecting in the future, what can we do to optimize your health for the long run above and beyond just cancer too? And part of that is going to be looking at your heart health, especially since a lot of cancer treatments will increase your risk of heart disease even more due to hormonal changes, because hormones are important for managing cholesterol. And if we got poor hormone changes going on, then that's going to increase your cholesterol. There's certain chemotherapies that can influence the heart muscle, heart rhythms, and things like that too. So we want to go above and beyond just looking at cancer here for sure. We want to look at long-term health and managing your heart disease and cholesterol risk over time. So those are the 5 points. Just to recap, we want to look at lowering inflammation. We want to look at targeting cancer stem cells. We want to look at supporting methylation, supporting hormone balance, and applying additional metabolic support. So this is how you choose the right supplements to support you. We want to look at these mechanisms in the body and the processes, and where are your health strengths, and we want to celebrate that. We want to say, good job. Don't need to worry about it anymore. And we want to focus in on what are the vulnerabilities here within your body that can lead you more susceptible to a pro-cancer environment happening, where there's more inflammation, more cell damage going on, more hormones feeding the cancer cells, more blood sugar reaching the cancer cells. What are these things that we can influence with supplements, nutrition, lifestyle, all these things, as opposed to killing cancer cells, except for maybe the cancer stem cells, where we might be looking at potentially some of those supplements killing cancer stem cells. So a nice little layer there. And then I just have to say, like, we're almost done here, but the number of DMs that I get with questions where it's like, I'm in recurrence from lymphoma or breast or thyroid cancer, what supplements should I take? And I have to say, I feel bad about this sometimes because I know there's a whole learning curve here. And now I could just send them to this podcast episode, which is great. But my response is always that, like, your cancer diagnosis matters less than you think. In order to choose your supplements, you actually want to look at your health and the overall processes in your body. This is going to actually be the best route for you to follow when it comes to deciding what are the best supplements for you. So it's not about killing cancer cells. It's more about looking at you and your full picture of health. And the best evidence out there is on optimizing your health and the overall processes that are going on in your body. So it's a foundation first approach where we're looking at, are you sleeping? How's your digestion? Are you getting enough nutrient dense food? Are you eliminating environmental contaminants? We can apply supplements in certain aspects to encourage those processes to work more happily, healthfully. And then we would layer in other things like targeting cancer stem cells, methylation, all those kind of things are going to be very important at that point too. So when we are supporting our flourishers, we often will walk them through like a 3-phase process where we're looking at restoring, removing, protecting. This is the outline of my last podcast episode, I believe, if I'm doing these in the right order, where we talk about restoring. So we're going to look at nourishing, we're going to look at rebuilding from treatment. So we're going to look at food and exercise, and then potentially some supplements, like even a protein powder could be considered a supplement to get them the right building blocks there to restore their health. We're going to be looking at getting their vitamins and things like that, and that might sometimes require supplements. We're going to look at removing harmful things from their body and what might be encouraging more harmful things to happen in their body to encourage cancer processes. So we're going to look at supporting detoxification, supporting gut health, getting rid of the things that don't really belong there. And that can sometimes require some supplements. And then also looking at protecting, so immune resilience, hormone balance, targeted support. So you can apply supplements for immune support and things like that. So working through the restore, the remove, protect, we start to put in supplements into those areas to support those three-phase processes, that three-phase process to happen, right? So how do we move forward here? Basically, I want you to know that I'm not anti-supplement, even though I've gotten that response sometimes like, oh, you just don't really like supplements, do you? I'm like, no, I love them. But I just don't want them to be overused when they're not super helpful. So the supplements can be powerful, but they've got to be used for the right reasons. I also want to make sure that you're not letting fear drive your decisions a lot of the time. I want you to make your decisions based on fact and information and strongest information first, like research first, understanding what's most important for your body, as opposed to just having all these things forced in your field of vision and everyone's telling you this is great for cancer. It might not be. It might not be useful to you. We really want to understand more about what can support your body as opposed to deciding something. You must take this because it's going to stop cancer. And I feel like that's more of a fear-based decision, right? And just like a more specific plan would be a little bit more effective than just 30 supplements or 10, even 10 supplements kind of thing. And supplements that can sometimes build up even whenever we're doing our processes, but they're going to be short term. They're going to be with a certain goal in mind that we're hoping to achieve. And then we will switch things out. We finish bottles off, we consider the job done, and then we move on to the next step if there's a next step that we need to work on. So I hope you enjoyed the information that I shared today. If you do want a little bit more details on testing and deciding on nutrition even and things like that, continue to follow along. Or I do have a free training that you can watch. You can go over to flourishabaftercancer.com/watch masterclass, and that will take you to my training, the first 4 steps to staying cancer free. So you can watch that on top of listening to all these episodes. I really appreciate you tuning in, and I hope to see you again next time. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Flourish After Cancer podcast. If you love this episode, please be sure to leave a review and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Sending all my best your way, Dr. Megan.